Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar hosted from HR Strategies Consulting. Today's topic, and the survey says, leveraging O data, operational data, with X data, employee experience data across the employee lifecycle to get a true measure of engagement. I'm Peter Santini. I am the webcast host today. I am the Vice President of HR Management Consulting at HR Strategies Consulting. I'll be joined today with two co-hosts, and we'll be talking about, during our webinar today, we'll be discussing dialogue digitally with your employees, create a culture of listening with an annual survey as well as other touch points, leverage the data you already have in other systems to enhance your digital listening initiatives. We will demonstrate the Qualtrics SAS platform to design surveys, deliver surveys, analyze both structured and unstructured data, create role-based dashboards for all levels of the business, implement action planning for leaders and managers. Joining me today in the webcast today is Manny Palumbi. He's the account executive of Qualtrics. Manny is a public sector lead based out of Toronto. Manny leads the public sector practice at Qualtrics Canada. He successfully led employee and citizen experience initiatives with his partner organization and continues to provide guidance to public sector organizations on best practices, experience management initiatives, and approaches. His key projects include COVID-19 pulses, employee engagement initiatives, and contact center transformation. Secondly, Yannick Balbo. He's a brand lead at Qualtrics. Yannick is the public sector EX lead based out of Toronto. At Qualtrics, Yannick helps HR leaders improve employee experience throughout their life cycle, from engagement to DEI or health and safety. He provides experience around the flexibility of Qualtrics technology, provides and how it enables, centralizes, and secures data processing needed for his clients to get real-time insight and take actions where required. Manny, Yannick, say hello to everybody.
Good afternoon, Peter. Thanks for having us. Looking forward to today.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Thanks for having us. Hi, everyone.
Looking forward to our conversation. So our discussion today will focus on one of the major challenges in measuring employee engagement is connecting engagement feedback and the information stored in HR systems. We will discuss and share how you can integrate and automate HR systems and activities. We'll show you how to pull together the HR data from different systems, enable the HR team to provide the business with a fuller perspective on strategic initiatives. We'll demo the Qualtrics platform, show you the art of the possible, and discuss how you do all this while still maintaining complete confidentiality on your surveyed touchpoints. So we thought we'd start off today by kicking off the discussion on what we consider to identify the 4 pillars of maximizing employee experience. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Manny to kick off the conversation to kind of highlight the 4 pillars, and then Yannick, you can add in your point of view as well, and we'll take it from there. And I'll start off by clicking the first point on the slide for you, Manny, and then take it from there.
Perfect. Thanks, Peter. So yeah, everyone, thanks for joining. And as we talk, if there are some questions, feel free to put them in through the chat. So Manny Palumbi, I'm based here out of Toronto, focused on the public sector practice, and excited to talk to you today about our employee engagement initiatives. And what Peter's showing you here, and what Yannick's going to expand on, is how we foundationally approach employee experience. And so you see EXM Foundation at the bottom, and we'll talk to that in a second, but we really look at this through 4 lenses. 1, the lens of the individual. How do they feel? How are we doing things to support them? 2, through the lens of the organization. What are the organizational goals and big practice initiatives that we are looking and mandates that we're looking to accomplish? From a workplace initiative, so the platform can help ensure that the employees have the tools that they need to be successful, and Yannick will expand on that. And lastly, from a transition, so the employee goes through their cycle, we can pinpoint certain points of areas where we're doing very well and areas that need focus. So with that, Yannick, I'm going to pass it to you to expand on some of these points.
Thank you, Manny. So my name is Yannick Boisblé. I'm solution consultant around employee experience based out of Toronto for Qualtrics. So Peter, if you don't mind, can you continue to build the slide? That would be great. Based on what Manny just mentioned, our 4 pillars around the employee experience foundation that Manny just alluded to. We'll look at the culture of the organization. So at the general level, if you start on the top left end of this quadrant, everything that the company is trying to put together, how do they identify, from a top bottom aspect of it, what is their perception of the culture they're trying to drive through their leadership team, and how does that transpire to the individual, which is the bottom left. Now we'll be able to compare, what is the feedback our employees are providing us, and how does that compare to, the culture we're trying to foster at the company? What are the gaps? And compare those gaps to start putting together some action plannings in terms of closing those gaps. Now at the individual level, obviously, when we talk about individual, we're talking about, leadership. We're also talking about the employees, the staff, the directors, and all that. So, how do we make sure that these employees feel the best possible as they're running their day-to-day initiatives or day-to-day activities? So that translates also into the transitioning piece. Transitioning, we'll be talking about all of the different aspects of the employee life cycle, from the moment they interact with their website or with a recruiter, all the way to when they leave your companies. And we'll be able to collect some feedback along the way for the employees, so that the company can, at any given moment of those interactions, understand exactly what triggers the employees, how to put them in the best condition possible. When you put them in a career progression path, what are the different criteria or the different training modules that you can make available for these employees? And then we'll encapsulate that with the workplace employee experience, which is going to touch on what are the key tools that we put in place for our employees to perform their duty on a day-to-day basis, for them to have the highest productivity. So this is basically our employee experience foundation. If you look at it, everything touches on each aspect of the employee life cycle throughout the experiences with the company. Next
Thanks.
slide.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, then we're going to kind of move into talking about X data and O data from that perspective. So let's define what we mean by X data and O data. And Yannick, you want to kick that conversation off?
Yes, thanks, Peter. So X data is really the experience. So this is, the feedback that you get from your employees. So all these feedbacks are triggered by, different types of interactions that you're going to create with your employees. So I mentioned earlier, the transition period, the transition phase, or the transitional aspect of employee experience. What do our employees feel about our company when we get when they become a candidate? How does that evolve? So really, it's the information, I could call it the feel information that you get from the employees, right? And then the O data is everything that's operational. Every information that you already have in your systems, whether it's your HRIS system, your ERP system, any sort of management tool or platform that you already have in there. And the beauty of a Qualtrics, of a platform like Qualtrics, is that we'll be able to mesh this information together to provide you with some trends, some analytics, in order for you to close. It's always about closing the gap between the perception and what the operational data provides you with your tools. Manny, off to you for some additional context.
Yeah, Yannick, I think you really covered the key points. Really, what we're trying to do is, as a system of action, to consider what we really want to do is integrate into a lot of the processes that you have in place. So when you were talking about the operational data, one of the things we'll talk about later is how do we integrate into those things, whether it's us passing information, the Qualtrics platform passing information into your HRIS, or the other way around. And by the way, we don't have to restrict it to the HRIS. It could be other platforms that you have within the organization, but we want to become part of your processes and workflows. And that's why we like to show this slide, which shows that we are helping you leverage the information you have and also enhance some of that information with pieces that you wish you had. So Peter, with that, I'll pass it back to you.
So in terms of moving on to the conversation and continue the conversation, one thing we'd like to do is ask you people on the session, if you don't mind putting in the chat spot, what because we might want to tackle these specific issues after we finish our conversation. From an employee engagement perspective, can you tell us what's your top current key issue that you need to address? Like, for example, you're dealing with the DEI situation, the return to the office because of COVID, mental health issues, staffing problems. Give us an indication of your top employee engagement issue that you're kind of dealing with or are going to be dealing with in the near future, and maybe we can have a further conversation on those topics as we go through our conversation. So feel free to put that into the chat so that we kind of know the key areas that we can talk about. So in terms of a conversation, one of the key things that I think is important for us to have a dialogue on is what does it mean to have a digital dialogue with an employee? We've heard the term, there's different perspectives on what that means. So let's, from your perspective, Manny, how would you describe that? What is a digital dialogue?
Yeah, so when Yannick and I talk to our customers about having a digital dialogue, it really is about creating that that conversation with your employees. And we use the term listen, understand, act. So listen, we would encapsulate is the either the annual engagement or a pulse survey or some sort of reach out where you're collecting the feedback. So you're collecting that feedback. You'll then analyze it both from a structured perspective and unstructured perspective, meaning you'll analyze the question straight out, or if you have open text questions, you'll gauge the top topics and sentiments. So you've done the listen, you've done the understand, and then the act. And this is the dialogue. When you have a view of the things that you're doing well and the things that are a gap, that's the active communicating back to the employees. Hey, thanks for your time. Appreciate you participating in this. Our findings were we're doing ABC really well, and we need to focus on DEF. And we're going to follow up with you with the following steps. And that's that digital dialogue, in that you've collected that information, but then you've acknowledged the collection and you've reached back out to those employees to say, now we want to show you what we're doing. And by the way, we're going to follow up so that we also gauge your feedback on, are we going in the right direction? Is this what you expected, etc.
Now,
Yannick, I'm not sure if there's anything else. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to ask you, now that, today's touch points, there's a lot of digital touch points. Do you find that the lack of, or is it important to also have built into it the traditional face-to-face touch points with employees as you go through your process?
Yeah, like I think we are part of a program, and we're certainly a strong enabler and key foundational piece, but the communication of it both before and after is key. And whether that's from the different levels within the organization, the senior executives, right down to the first line manager. But yeah, there's always a personal touch needed as well, so that that dialogue. Now you're moving from digital to analog, but the dialogue can continue with the employees, and the trust can continue to be built.
Anything you want to add, Yannick?
Yes, I think when we talk about digital discussion, it's really meeting the employees where they are to capture feedback. Whether it's what we call a site intercept to capture some experience data around how was your onboarding, or around how was the training that you just got from this platform. So being able to say, well, the employee is going to go and provide some feedback on the training. Or if you want to launch a pulse, everything is available. They don't have to be in front of a computer, in front of the laptop to respond to those different touch points. So Qualtrics is a mobile-enabled platform, so the employees can leverage that, on a day-to-day basis. So it's really, when we talk about digitizing the experience, it's really meeting the employees where they are in order to capture as much feedback as possible. And to your point about Are we a substitute to, face-to-face conversation, discussions, and so on and so forth? Certainly not. What we're going to do is we're going to provide the, specific data that is going to make those conversations more productive, that everybody agrees on. So during the demonstration, I'll be able to share some of that content on how to lead to those face-to-face conversations in order to make sure that the actions we're going to be taking are directly related or correlated to the feedback our employees have provided.
Cool, thanks. So from your perspective, in terms of your experiences, what do you think are the typical barriers companies face in establishing employee trust in the digital realm? Because a lot of people are still uncomfortable with that concept of, if I put something out there, it's going to be tracked, it's going to be available to people, the confidentiality might not be there. What do you think the typical barriers associated to the digital realm are from an employee engagement perspective?
So I'll start.
Yeah, go ahead, Yannick. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say, the research data shows that feedback without action is what creates frustration. So when companies run their engagement survey, and we've seen some running the engagement survey every 2 years, for example. So the reason why they would run an engagement survey every 2 years is because they want to take the time to, take action on the specific items that come up as challenges. But the problem is, feedback from 2 years ago is certainly not the reality of today. So if you think about 2 years ago, an engagement survey that was done by companies, with COVID, everything is upside down. So now what do? Do you continue to take action on, things that are no longer relevant, or do you want to be current and pulse your employees more regularly? So the action after the feedback is going to make the employees more engaged in providing the feedback. Now you mentioned something, confidentiality. Employees want to make sure that the feedback they provide is not going to be used against them. So with a technology platform like Qualtrics, we are very, very conscious of that. And we want to make sure that, in the templated communications that we have out to our clients, or, with, the support and the expertise that HR strategies will provide to the client, is to make sure that we communicate the right way to the employees. We'll maintain confidentiality. We have some thresholds level of confidentiality in the platform, and we have enhanced anonymity as well built into the platform that our clients can leverage to make sure that as they go through collecting that feedback, the employees can feel like the information is going to remain confidential or confidential and anonymized. Up to you, Manny.
Yeah, Yannick, you hit a lot of the key points that you and I really discuss on. Peter, first question we get is, how do I know it's secure? Mm-hmm. So this will be an organizational question. So the security team will generally reach out to the HR team and ensure that's there. So I want you to feel comfortable. I mean, we would talk this through. We have a security posture, but you're always going to get this question: how do we make sure that data stays secure? The second point Yannick mentioned: who will see my data? So that comes up all the time. We're in public sector, so many of our organizations are union-based. So we explain how data is kept confidential, and Yannick will show that a little later in the demo. The third challenge that comes up is, hey, this is great. I actually don't have access to a laptop, computer, or mobile device. So how can you help me engage digitally? And we have some ideas around that. That's a barrier I see at times in the public sector, especially with those of your team who we'll call it maybe have an outdoor job or a job that doesn't need them to have a computer or mobile device. So again, we have some ideas there, but that comes up. And then the last point Yannick mentioned it, where he led with the feedback without action. So those are the main four items that I see as well, and that will generate a lot of conversation prior to rolling out any program.
And I would agree from my experience, one of the key variables to developing trust is that follow-up action timing relative to the information that you gather. If you can go out and ask people for their opinion, and then you don't do anything and respond to them in a timely fashion, it goes toward building mistrust. And so timing and action are critical key components to build that culture of trust in terms of using the employee feedback and moving with it. So I think that, timing and action is a very key critical point with any employee engagement endeavor from that perspective. So from your perspective, what do you think some of the key data sources that organizations currently already have access to that they're not leveraging on an employee engagement process? What would you say those key data sources would be? Annie, you want to go first?
Sure. So Yannick and I have a lot of conversations where their employee engagement platform, whatever it is not necessarily linked into the HR information system. So I would say that's where we spend a lot of time discussing the merits of that, the business case of that, the ROI of why you'd want to consider that. It comes to Yannick's earlier point about bringing in the operational data. Yannick talked to making data-driven decisions, and you're going to collect a lot of information on your employee engagement survey or an employee pulse survey, but it's enhanced that much more when you're bringing in the operational data that you already have. And I would say, at a minimum, start with your HR information system. If you can put your learning system in and your applicant tracking system in, those all add. But I'm going to start on the first one. Yannick, did you want to talk about maybe some of the learning systems or the applicant tracking systems, the second and third?
Yeah, I think when we think about this more particularly, we look at, we start where you are. We don't want to boil the ocean, certainly, because there is some change management that comes with that. I think, man, if we limit the conversation to have that HRIS information integrated with a Qualtrics system. So we're talking about open API platforms and solutions. So we have built-in APIs to help our clients get those connections right away when they start their programs. What it does is, whenever your org structure changes, whenever you have mobility with your employees, that information is also going to be tracked in time. So you will have some longitudinal information about, the experiences that your employees are having as they're evolving or making their way into different parts of the organizations or evolving into, leadership roles and so on and so forth. So really, that's where you would start from a candidate or ATS or learning management systems. Same principle. As long as this tool is an open API solution, Qualtrics will be able to tap into those information. So it's a bi-directional synchronization that happens between the system. And sorry for getting a little bit technical there, but you'll be able to have the information coming into Qualtrics and going back to your different systems there.
Yeah, so obviously, the more data you can gather and specifically tie it to either what you currently have from an HRIS, ATS, learning management, compensation, and operational financial payroll systems to gather all the data that's available to you, the more effective you can be in making your decisions and looking at the trends in an organization. Would you not agree, both of you?
Yeah, and so again, the key there is the more we've always wanted to balance. Tanner's point, it's not let's figure out the mandates, let's bring it in, and then let's move it to your dashboard so that you can make the associated decisions.
So I guess from that perspective, now that you've gone and collected all this data, now what? What's the next step? How do you convert it to action?
Yeah, so this is one of those things we'll talk to quickly, but it's probably best shown alive. And Yannick's going to move into this, but I talked about listen, understand, act. So listen, understand is collecting the data, making some sense of it. In our case, our approach is we have an action planning module within the platform, or feature set, I'll say, within the platform, which allows you to focus on those top items where the employees have said, hey, we'd like you to focus over here. So not only focus on them, put some ownership around it, put some structure around it, and progress it from where it's at to a future state. So Yannick, maybe I'll pass it to you to expand a bit more, but I appreciate we're gonna show some of this later.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So yeah, now you have the information, then what, right? So being able to very quickly identify the areas that are of importance to your employees is going to be key. Again, back to the point about efficiency, right? I launch a survey. Those are the challenges of today. I want to be able to address the challenges of today, not in 6 months or 9 months. I want to be able to do it, within the next few weeks, or at least start that conversation. So it's a real-time platform that is going to provide you with the analytics the minute you start getting the information into the system. And then we're talking about data-driven decisions. The action plan module that is built into the platform is going to track that information from what are the key themes that we're building the action plan on, who's responsible for this specific theme, and how are we making sure that we see progress on this theme based on the pulse surveys that we're going to have moving forward. So I collect the information, it's being analyzed in the system, it's interpreted in the system, I create the action plans based on the system, I understand who owns it, and then I see the progress based on that specific topic, on that specific team, that specific manager, that specific organization. So I think that's really powerful, but there's a methodology that comes with it. We have built our themes or our measure of engagement based on research, and therefore our action plans are guided action plans. Oftentimes HR will have the responsibility for that, but if you imagine a very large organization that wants their leaders to be, owning that the process of creating those action plans, now what we do is we help them with the methodology or the specific guided action plans for them to go off of, not recreating something completely new, but going off of what's in the platform, and then you can cater, customize, and make it your own. And then you can track it in time, which you'll be able to see in the platform down the road.
Yeah, as we're going to be transitioning over to the demo in a minute or so. So we have kind of one more last question for our conversation and discussion. And from your experience, Manny and Yannick, how would you say not to measure employee engagement? What should you not do for an employee to measure employee engagement? Let's try the negative side of it instead of the positive side. Any thoughts?
The trick question at the end. It's to Yannick's point and our point earlier. I'm gonna put this another way. We get the question a lot of, another survey. There's gonna be a lot of survey fatigue. And the feedback from Yannick and I is survey fatigue is really a function of not following up after it's done. So the key is that dialogue, and the key is feeding it back. So number one, having the dialogue, and then number two, I think at a high level, I would say is it shouldn't be only on the HR team. So the more we can get the broader organization to lean in, like the executives, to say, hey, the HR team will be leading this year's annual engagement survey, and ABCDE, and here's what we're going to do with it, and here's why we stand behind it. Like, this does need to be a full support from the org across all the levels. So I know the HR teams have already a lot on their plate, but I think that's the key as well to success, is ensuring that the entire org's behind it, behind the themes, and behind the goals of the whatever survey is being put out. Yannick, I don't know if you'd expand on any of that or have a different perspective.
Yeah, and I would add, your organization is unique, so it's not a one size fits all. You need to be able to personalize the questions. You need to be able to use the language that is unique to your company. So I think with the flexibility that that you will need to be able to create this the specific type of questions that are going to create discussion for your company is really important. So it's not just about going with what is already in the platform. You have that as a starting point, but you want to be able to have that flexibility of saying, I don't need this question, I want to remove it myself. I want to modify this question because it doesn't necessarily speak to my employees like that. So that flexibility is also something that I see coming as a request from my clients. So you really avoid the one size fits all type of approach.
Which makes sense. Customize it to your organizational culture, organizational needs and requirements, and so forth. So from that perspective, that totally makes sense. I think from this point, we're at a point in our conversation today that we're going to move on to the demo from a Qualtrics perspective. So I'm going to pass this over to Yannick, and he can take us through and demo the Qualtrics solution for everyone on the call today. Over to you, Yannick.
Thank you, Peter. I just want to make sure, Peter or Manny, can you confirm that you see this coming right?
Yep, I do.
Yeah. Yep. Great, thank you. So this is a typical administrator page for Qualtrics. When you log into the platform, it's going to give you an overall idea of the different surveys or projects that you have in the platform. An idea of the workflows. You can view some historical information in there, or like what type of surveys are being run, collaborated on for your different for your organization. So you'll see with Qualtrics we have different types of surveys. We have we can work with you to build a diversity inclusion feedback, for example, manager effectiveness feedback, and so on and so forth. So creating a project in the Qualtrics platform, and this is purely from an administrative standpoint. I just want to show you how easy and flexible it is, for any given administrator to create a new project into the Qualtrics platform. So if I want to create a project, we talked about, what's available in the platform based on the research that we've put into the methodology. What's available out there. So from an employee engagement standpoint, if you were to create it, it will provide you with some information. This is a guided project. It tells you what's in it. It gives you, the organizational hierarchy, which is built in. And the reason why we want to make sure this is in there is that when you report the information in a dashboard, you'll be able to slice the information based on your organizational hierarchy. The project templates that you have in the platform that you benefit from with Qualtrics are listed here. It's non-exhaustive, so we also have some projects that you can go and download in our on our website that you can leverage here. So, but this is just an example of what is already available to you in the platform. And then say you create an engagement survey. This is what it will look like when you go into the engagement survey. We have our key themes around engagement, which are collaboration, communication, company leadership, and so on and so forth. So you can see all of it here. The intent to stay, the inclusion, which is part of, our diversity, equity, and inclusion survey. So we have the inclusion piece here that we've been able to upload. But the flexibility with the Qualtrics platform, as I said, is we have our templated questions in the platform. If you wanted to modify the question is a matter of a click to modify it. If you wanted to add a question, also a matter of a click here. If you hit the plus button, and if you want to remove a question, it's a matter of just, again, simply clicking that button to remove it. So again, yes, there is a model, but customize, modify, which is, from an employee standpoint, from a customer standpoint, we are very centric around the experience of building a survey. There are some aspects of customization in the platform. If you wanted to make it have the look and feel of your own company, you can certainly upload your logo, into the platform. Here you can see I've put the Qualtrics logo here. You can have some background and so on and so forth. More important than not, when we talk about digitizing the experience, you'll be able to see the look and feel of your survey on a mobile screen. And the platform comes with multiple languages in there, so you can, before even populating the survey, you can see what it looks like in the different languages that you want the survey to be translated. From a participant standpoint, I just wanted to show you again, we talked about connecting the platform to your HRIS system. So here you can see there are lots of participants loaded into the platform, but here, this is where you're going to be able to create your organizational hierarchies. You'll be able to create a new one here and then have it all reflected to make sure that this is similar or exactly the same as what you have in your HRIS system when it comes down to the organization structure. And then from a messaging standpoint as well, before sending the survey, you have some templated message in there. The link for the survey itself can be individualized, right? So each employee with their unique code will receive a unique link for them to be able to provide their feedback. And it can also be anonymized, but again, this is going to, it's going to be dependent on how you want this approach to be done. So from a backend standpoint, so you have distribution options here as well. So you have mail, you have text, which is also possible. So we give you the flexibility for you to meet your employees where they are. So before sending the survey, we always want you to be able to see what it looks like in real time. So I'm just going to have on the screen here for those who want, you can scan this QR code just to go with your phone, just to go through what that experience looks like. You'll be prompted, you have a similar screen here. If you use your mobile, you'll be able to change the language, and then you'll be able to go through the different questions and fill out the survey. So I hope that everybody has been, for those interested, you've been able to scan the QR code. So I'll close that. So it gives you really an idea of what it looks like from a mobile device standpoint, but also from a laptop standpoint when it comes down to filling out the survey. Now we've collected the information, then what? What do we do with that information, and how do we make sure that we're going to take the right actions? So this is a high-level overview or an example of what a dashboard would look like in the Qualtrics environment. So this is a dashboard specifically for the employee engagement survey that was sent out. So think about HR having access to all of this information. And the few things that I want to show you very quickly, we talked about organizational structure, hierarchy, and so on and so forth, and then also different type of social demographic data that you would have in your system, or that you would want to be tracking the information by. So here you have the different filters around, tenure, around departments. So you can select the information based on a specific area of the business, based on your choice. Location is also one of the criteria that you can select. You can slice the information by gender if that's something you want to also track. But again, when we talk about those specific information that are being tracked, this is information that is available to HR. You can decide to make it available or not, depending on who you give access to. So here you'll have your engagement score. It's going to give you a comparison. So obviously this is at the company level, but you will have a comparison in time, and you will have a comparison based on the industry. So here it gives you an idea. For this particular industry, this is where the baseline is for the engagement score, and then how the company engagement score is trending. Don't mind the dates here. We're not going to ask you to run an engagement survey every week, but that just gives you an idea of, okay, this is real-time information. Maybe we are going through the project and we see how this engagement score is trending, but you would have an idea here on how you compare to the other industries, to your peers in your industry. The attrition risk is one of the pieces where this is operational data that is imported into the Qualtrics platform. So, high performer attrition risk. So high performer, which is a component of, it could be from your performance rating tool that you have in there. So we've incorporated that information into the platform. And then the attrition risk is a specific question, again, the experience data, where those employees are going to say, well, I don't see myself at this company for in the next 6 months, for example. What is the long-term effect of my commitment to the company? And then we'll correlate that here to show you, and this gives you an example of how we can incorporate some external operational data into the Qualtrics platform. So the results by category at the bottom here will give you an idea of the specific items that Qualtrics measures when it comes down to the overall engagement score. So you can open them up. So communication, you'll see the different questions here. You'll see the different responses, the mean, and then how it's distributed. So it's color coded here for you to see what's favorable, what's neutral, and what's unfavorable, just to give you a real idea of where to start, what to be concerned about, and how should we go about this. So you see the percentages are here represented here as well from the last period standpoint. So for the survey follow-up, we talked about this, what's being done after the survey has been created. Do I trust that the company is going to do the right thing when it comes down to my responses? So you can see there is a drop here. So you can decide right from the get-go. So now we have the data. We've analyzed the data and we provide you some high-level insights as to what's coming out of it. You can decide from right here to create an action plan. So again, it's a platform of action, but we want database action to make sure that when you start building an action plan, you have the specific around what those action plans are. So you can decide to do it on that specific category, or you can decide to do it on a specific question in the platform. So again, a lot of flexibility here. So I'll just give you an illustration of what it looks like from a real-time standpoint. So if I want to look at, the HR department, for example, just only the HR department. So you'll see this is going to show my engagement score for the HR department only. It's going to give me a different idea of what my attrition risk is. It was at 5% overall for the company overall. Now it's 3%. And then you see also here that those percentages have changed. So it gives you a specific information around this department only. I can even go further. In the HR department, if I want to look at the female perspective only, and again, because we have more than at least 5, or what you've defined as what the threshold should be, we'll be able to continue to see the engagement score and see that, in our female, the women in the HR department, this is specifically how they feel. So you see the results have changed a little bit here when it comes down to those specific categories and where things, what their perception is. So again, you can create action plans based on specific categories of your employees, just to make sure that you're hitting the right population and you're changing the dynamic in terms of, or you're addressing the specific for that particular category. So we'll extend it a little bit in terms of the engagement score. We want to show you where to focus, right? So when we talk about a platform of action, we want you to be able to address what to take action on very quickly. So in this quadrant here, which is the key drivers quadrant, so you see I've moved from one area of the dashboard to another. My filters are still consistent. So I'm looking at HR and female in HR. So you look at the quadrant here, consider the top right, where your engagement score is high and the impact or the importance to your employees is high as well. The bottom right here is the engagement score is high, but the level of importance is not high. At the bottom left here, engagement score is not great, but the level of importance is not necessarily not having a big impact on your employees. But here is where you need to really pay attention to, because the level of importance is really high, and then the engagement score is below the medium for the company. So right here, do I have a clear understanding of what is expected of me? This is purely a management conversation in terms of, hey, this is what your job requires for you to do. We want you to be clear on what those parameters are for you to perform the best way possible. So really quickly, you can identify where to take action specifically, and help your employees understand those specific criteria. So again, platform of action. So this is about the structured data. In our methodology, we also strongly recommend being able to provide the employees with the ability to say it in their own words. But when you do that with a standard platform, you'll have to go and extract all the responses, analyze the responses, provide a categorization based on positive or negative comments. But the platform is going to help you do that really quickly. So this is our text analytics capability that is also going to quickly put together the specific key themes that come the most often from your employees. And this is based on text analytics. So the text IQ feature of the Qualtrics platform is going to provide you with those analytics. It's going to present this bubble chart, which is really nice to look at from a UI standpoint. And then very quickly for you to see when, the bigger the bubble, the more this topic is being specifically talked about. And then you can see it's going to provide you with some sentiment around those specific themes, right? So the sentiments are going to vary by very negative to very positive. So you'll be able to specifically look at it from a information standpoint. Now, if you want to look at it more specifically, you can dive in there by clicking on that specific area, which is career progression. Now I looked at career progression, right? Again, HR, females, and then I can look at specific verbatim comments that are going to help me understand very particularly on topics that are important to my employees, what is being said. This is completely anonymized, right? So here you can see we've decided to put in the location. Again, it's only going to appear if there are more than 5 females in that particular organization or location. Otherwise, this comment wouldn't appear here, right? And then the sentiment associated with the comment is also going to be reflected here for you to be able to see and find out those detailed comments, which is really helpful for your action plans. So again, I think this is very powerful, and it's one of the areas where we see our clients saying, well, this is going to help us cut down on weeks and weeks of data analysis, because this is done real time as well in the platform. So there's another component to Qualtrics that I want to highlight for you particularly. So when you consider putting the dashboard in the hands of leadership, so many alluded to the fact that this shouldn't just be the responsibility of HR. So I wanted to show you what a manager dashboard would look like. So you see here very quickly, we want to put the highlight on what is my team engagement score, how do I compare to the overall organization, so my peers, right? How do I compare to my last engagement survey, so last year or 6 months ago or whatever the timing might be, and how do I compare industry-wise, so benchmarking here. But we put the emphasis on action. What is the actions that I need to take very particularly, and what has been identified as challenges that I have? So here, you will be able to see, where you have opportunities to improve. The engagement score is being measured compared to the company, and then you have an impact score that is also measured here. So this shows you that you're below the engagement score for the company. This as well is going to show the same thing, but you can see that the impact is higher. So you can decide, do I want to take an action plan right away on career development, or do I want to start with, ensuring that we take care of our clients, right? Depending on the level of importance. So if I were to create an action plan here, I would just click on the improve button and it will take me through the process of creating an action plan. But also, we want to highlight what you're doing really well, because I think this is a very key, important information to have in terms of, communicating it back to the company, communicating it back to candidates that want to join your specific team. Or, when you have cross-functional changes, people moving from one department to another, these are the things that they want to see. Oh, the cooperation with the team is amazing. It's off the charts. So we want to make sure that we show this as well, because this is important. We just don't want to show what you have to improve on, but the things that you're doing really well as well, and that you should continue to do. So this part here from a managerial standpoint is really, really important. You can see that we put the emphasis on the action more so than, analyzing the information and so on and so forth, because managers, what they want to be able to do is take action right away, which helps HR not spending too much time on, building those action plans for them. And those are guided action plans as well.
Yeah, I just want to give you a time check, about 5 more minutes.
For sure. Thank you, Peter. So once those action plans are created, and that will be the last part of the presentation, want to be able to track what they look like, right? So at an organizational level, we've created the action plans now. How do we ensure that we take them all the way to, closing these action plans, and then, making sure that all of the different points that we've taken action on have been completed. It's a closed loop, basically, you could call that. So again, here, if it's HR, so if I go and I select it for all, you'll be able to see all of the action plans that have been created in the platform, right? What are the topics the action plans have been created around, right? From an HR standpoint, very quickly, you'll be able to see that. And that's only possible because those action plans are created on specific topics that are measured in the platform. And then what is the status by department, right? And then again, color coded when it's completed, green when it hasn't been started yet, and when it's past due. This is less about tracking people and what they're doing. It's more so about collaborating and helping them if there are some challenges with completing the action plan and so on and so forth. And part of it is having the conversation with the employees, being able to complete them. And this is tremendous, because most of the clients I talked to before they move to the Qualtrics platform, they look at it and say, well, I have to do my action plans in Excel, in a different tool, and so on and so forth. But with that, it makes sure that for them, they stay in the same platform and they can complete all of it. So I just walked you through the Qualtrics platform from an administration standpoint, data collection standpoint, analysis, what it looks like from an HR perspective in terms of the key areas that are of importance to us, what it looks like from a manager standpoint in terms of what we need to do and what actions we need to take, what is key, what is critical, and then how we close the loop and we tie it back together with the action plan reporting. So that concludes the demonstration for today. I want to thank you for the time, for your time, and we'll have plenty of opportunities to answer any questions you have. Thanks, Peter.
Cool. Thanks, Yannick. So we're almost done. I'm just trying to share my screen again. All right. Share my screen. There we go. And Yannick, we had this one slide left that you might want her to talk about in terms of the Forrester information on Qualtrics before we move on to the last slide.
Yeah, so this basically shows you that Qualtrics is ranked #1 in experience management, and you have the list of the major competitors that we have from a technology standpoint, but also not only from a technology standpoint, but from a methodology standpoint as well. So this is an independent research that has been done by Forrester. So we just want you to understand that Qualtrics is #1 in technology and in methodology as well.
Thanks for that, Yannick. And if we move on to we have a few more minutes left. Wanted to see if there was any questions from the participants. I've been looking in our chat and our questions. I don't see any. And based on that, I'm and we're getting close to the end of our time limit. Any wrapping comments from Manny or Yannick before we sign off?
No, Peter, it's Manny. I just want to thank you for the opportunity. I think this was really thorough. And like you said, if anyone on the call wants to reach out afterwards through yourself, we're all happy to get back together and continue this dialogue. So thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks, Peter.
Thanks, Yannick. And as Manny said, for the participants that are on, if you'd like to get a hold of us, you have our email and contact information. We'd be happy to have a continued dialogue with you and help you discover your path toward employee engagement and work with you. So thank you for joining us today. It's been a pleasure, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.